All right. What's up, y'all? Today is the 30th of December, 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Little rundown, and then we'll get into the podcast. In the Image Clothing Company is so much more than just a company about clothing. We are a company actually about the human body. That's the reason we are what we are. We are centered around the gospel of Jesus Christ. We understand that the body's not about the fat content or the muscle mass, but it's about the skeletal system and a natural position that we need to just allow it to have. And we do that mostly through clothing because clothing is the only thing that's placed physically on us at all times. So it has the highest potential out of anything to alter our bodies. So I know the body in depth, and I know it through that way, the avenue of clothing, through personal experience. So clothing on everybody, man or woman, tall or short, any age, fat or skinny. Pants need to be entirely above the hips to allow those hips to just open and move and have all their natural ranges of motion, and slightly higher in the front than in the rear for the waistline of the pants, because that's how we're going to keep our core, which needs to contract to activate, naturally activated. The core would always be activated unless there was a reason it was inhibited. And that's just how we're going to allow that to happen. And then for the tops that we wear, the shoulder seams need to be behind that little bone that is the other end of the collarbone, right? So right behind that little bone, I mean, they sit there. I know mine doesn't look like it is right now, but I'm sitting against this thing. This windowsill is right on my scapulas. So they need to be behind that little bone. That's the other end of your collarbone from this end, right? By where your sternum is. And that just allows them to be in their neutral positions as far as the shoulders go. And then right at the very edges for those edge seams, that's how clothing needs to sit. Because you can work out all you want and you can try to stretch all you want or do whatever you want to your body. But if the only thing that's actually placed on it besides itself is altering it, you'll never get anywhere with those other things. So, yeah, 2 prerequisites to allow the body to have a chance, besides just allowing clothing to fit correct. Lacing our shoes with In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique. Included with that is to tie them evenly over toward the inside so you have an even foundation. And the second prerequisite is to remove all tags from clothing. All tags. Even within the tongues of the shoes, if you can't actually get them out, you can just kind of roughen them up, put slits into them with a knife or some scissors, just so there's texture where your ankle will dorsiflex. Now, we have, as well as In the Image Clothing Company podcast, we have In the Image Clothing Company music. We have In the Image Clothing Company, the main side of things. So we got 3 avenues of approaching this thing that we do. Now, this is the podcast, and this is episode 23 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. So what I'm going to talk about is something great, something amazing, and something wonderful. Minimalism. Now, minimalism has kind of become a thing. It's kind of become like a word, a term. It's become something that is almost like a movement in a way. But I just really want to talk about it as it is and what happens to you and comes from minimalism. Now, really, when I'm talking about it, what I mean is just being very minimal with the amount of things that we have. Only having what we actually need. We live in a consuming society in 2024, and there's so many things available to purchase. There's so many things that we can get, that we can desire, and that we can place importance on, that can take up our focus and our time. But if we really only do everything we can, at least, to have just all that we need, and that's it, then we can think clearer. You know, you if you have only the amount of clothes that you need and only ones that actually fit correct, then you don't have to sit there and try to think through, all right, if I wear this item of clothing, it might look a certain way, but maybe it's not going to feel comfortable. But if I wear this one, it'll be more comfortable, but maybe it won't be as like presentable for this person if I'm trying to please them over God, right? So like all that kind of stuff, no joke. You get so deep with just having a few things too much. We only need what we need. And as human beings, that's something that's not the easiest to do. It's not the easiest to see things as needs versus wants. And it's something that we can train ourselves to be able to do better, as far as something that we can overcome. A lot of these things are just limiting things, beliefs in our mind about we need this, we need that, because growing up we didn't feel that we had it, and so then we hold on to more than we actually need. A lot of times it's the people around us telling us things that they feel that they need, or that the society that we live within, as far as the part of the world that we personally are in, certain things get placed more importance on than others in different parts of the world, different time periods. Things that are new become something that seems that everybody has to have one of, but you don't. A lot of things like that will cause us to just have way more than we actually need. And then the things that we actually have, we don't even know that we have. We'll have closets full of things and drawers full of things, or suitcases full of things, or however many things, or however wherever your things are placed, a lot of times you have more than you actually need. And I've done that so often in my life. Both of my parents are quite lovers of things. So I grew up with seeing that around me, and then I ended up with way more things than I needed. And now that's not the case. So I am a fingerstyle guitarist. This is Frank the guitar right here. If you're watching this in visual form of the audio podcast, as well as the audio form, then you can see this is Frank the guitar, my cute little Yamaha CGS 102A half-sized beautiful guitar. And we have, like I was mentioning, 1/3 of our company is in the Image Clothing Company Music. And you'll see a lot of Frank on there, and just a lot of me doing things with music. So I also had this little ukulele, this little soprano ukulele that I had for about a month from this point back. And I just went and I gave him away about probably 30 minutes ago, because I don't want to spread myself too thin, and I don't want to have my focus be taken up with something else besides my main instrument. So I just have Frank. And there's a lot of stuff that I've done like that in the past, especially year of my life. I had so many things. Like I said, growing up, I just accumulated so much. I got told that I wasn't even allowed to get rid of things as a kid, because what if we never got it again, and you better be so grateful for this because I gave it to you, and all these things, and I ended up with way more stuff than I could have even ever possibly done anything with. It was just taking up space, and it was taking up space in my mind, even if it wasn't something I had to even really deal with. Like, it was just sitting in the house somewhere, and I didn't have to even address it until something came up, as far as like, you need to move, and now what do you do with all the stuff, or things like that. It still took up space in my mind, just knowing like, man, I got all this stuff. I'm so sporadic and I'm so unpredictable, and that's who I am naturally. That really just is the authentic me. And I change so often. I always have. And so if I want to just pick up and move physically or approach wise toward anything, I don't want to have to feel like I have so many things I got to figure out what to deal with and how to deal with and what to do with. So being minimal is so beautiful. Just, a few pairs of shoes, just the amount of clothes that you actually need, so that you can wash them when they're dirty and still have ones to wear that are clean in the meantime, and cycle through. Everything that we have, ideally, we just have only the amount that we need. Within the gospel, it talks all the time about that. It talks about giving away all that you have to those around you that have less. It talks about, like, when the disciples got called out on their 2x2 missions, they took nothing but a staff, and maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't have physical scriptures with me right now, and I have them on what I'm filming this with, but I'm not going to be opening that up to read right now. But really, they were commanded to just go out and rely on our God for everything. All of their needs would be provided as long as they were faithful. They would be provided with everything that they needed. And that is the truth. And that is how it is. And that is a testimony that I'm going to be able to forever share after some of these times in my life, within especially this past year. I have gotten rid of and given away so much, and it clears you. It clears your mind, and it clears space within you to just be who and what you are without having all these things that you potentially attach yourself to. So I've been thinking about this episode of the podcast for a good little while, and I knew I was going to make it, but right now is a really great time to, after just giving away this ukulele. There's been so many times in my life when I've held on to things so tight, and that's a belief that I had because of who I saw, who I was raised by. That belief was very prominent in our household, and not very much faith was very prominent in the household that I grew up in. So I had a little truck this year, a little single cab, really small truck, manual transmission, bare bones, base model trim. And I drove that truck around, and I didn't have any kind of income at the time. And somehow I bought that truck, and it just worked out. I ended up selling my dirt bike for $1,500, and I bought the truck for $1,300, and I think it was a little bit more after taxes and fees. So my dirt bike paid for the truck, and then I had just a little bit of money, and I sold some other things and got some money, and I had a really nice mountain bike, and I sold that for just a few $100s, even though it was worth probably around the same price as the dirt bike. I just was in this like clearing time where I was getting rid of all these things I didn't need anymore, that I was holding on to and placing importance on, and that I couldn't be me because I assigned myself to these things. And I'm just as much me if I have nothing as I am if I had every item of possible tangible possession that we could have on this earth. When I had this truck, there was 4 separate times when I ran out of gas. And when I got in the truck and started driving each of those times, I knew that there was a potential to run out of gas, but I was praying through all that time, and I was praying through those times leaving in the truck, and I knew that I just should go. Regardless of if I ran out or not, I just knew that it would work out, and that there was an intentionality and a purpose behind running out of gas. And each of those times, it was a separate experience, and I had to ask people for gas or figure out a way to get in touch with somebody who I lived with to come bring me some gas in a can. And I told you the date at the beginning of this. Since, as far as I'm aware, somewhere right around February of this year, I haven't had a cell phone plan. And I've had a cell phone since I was 13. And I have every means to go be able to get money and get a cell phone plan paid for. But it has been just a time in my life where I've been supposed to not have one. Yeah. So it's been about 10 months since I've had any kind of like, way of accessing the internet without being within Wi-Fi. And I haven't had any kind of texting or calling. I haven't had any social media for about 2+ years now. That's something I used to waste so much time on. And all these things, just getting rid of everything and living and going without all these things that I just didn't know that I could have before, and maybe would have thought that I couldn't have, which is entirely false. I've been better off. And it's been something that has given me so much understanding and so much perspective. So with that little truck, I come from having cars that I modified and they were so customized, these off-road vehicles, four-wheel drive, and I put a lot of time into, and they had nice paint and a lot of stuff like that. And then I had this little truck. It was only rear-wheel drive, and it didn't have cruise control or air conditioning or power steering, and it was great and it worked well and it got good gas mileage. And I put new tie rods on it. I put all 4 new tie rods on in the driveway by myself. I replaced the spark plugs and the spark plug wires and the air filter and the transmission fluid and the engine oil, and I repaired a whole 8-foot brake line that I had to customize and do myself. And I put a new wheel cylinder in the rear left brake that was leaking, and I did a lot of things to it, more than that even. And it was something that I put a lot of time and effort into when it was just a bare bones little truck, but it was so good. I bought some sandbags and sand that I put into the bed of it because it was still coming out of wintertime when I first got it at the beginning of this year. And I got it in February, as far as I know. And it was so cool to do all that work to it when it's something that was minimal in itself. I mean, it was something that there wasn't much to. It was just plain white paint on the exterior. It had little 14-inch trailer wheels on it. Steel wheels. And it was amazing. It just ran so well. I ripped it up some canyons and back. I actually took it in the dirt quite a bit in the springtime, and it went well. I bought some new cute little white wall tires to match the white wheels and the white paint. It was a fun little truck, and it ran so well. So just getting something that's just so bare bones and so simple after having, I had some off-road vehicles that were the highest trim level, and they had, a lot of options and a lot of stuff, that can be useful in ways, but it's also just not actually needed. And so I really got shown what's actually needed through having that cute little bare bones truck. I bought a shelf for the rear of it, and at the time, the guitars that I had, I was carrying around in the rear of the bed of the truck, and they were covered, and there was that shell that I bought that I had to make mounts for, because when I bought it, I had to drive it home just carefully because we just set it on the bed and it could have slid off if I went too fast or turned too sharp. And so then I got the hardware and made little mounts for the shell and got it all lined up well. Yeah, there's a lot that I did to that little truck. A lot. And it was awesome. I learned so much with something so simple. Frank the guitar here, the way that he comes from the factory isn't the way that I say that we need guitars to be. Because our hands are rounded, we need a radius to everything that we use. And we are in the Image Clothing Company. Even on the music side of things, we're still in the Image Clothing Company. Music. So I've put a radius into the saddle and into the fretboard and into the nut slots to allow it to accommodate for the hand. And I've had guitars that are $1,000 guitars, and this thing was $88 that I didn't even purchase. My mom bought it for me for Christmas. And it's the best guitar I've ever played. And it's really cool to just see the contrast in thinking that we have all this stuff and so much and the highest thing, the most advanced and the newest and the quote-unquote best, when really the thing that seems the most minimal, as in like, this might barely get you by, is actually the best thing that I've had as far as guitars go. And that truck, I didn't have any problems with that truck. I fixed the vacuum leak that it had, and the other things that I mentioned I did, and there are a few other things that I did as well, and it just worked so well. I did a full coolant flush just by myself. I had never done that. There's a lot that I did to that cute little truck. I changed out the serpentine belt, and, you know, it was just really sweet, man. Really quite the gift. All the simplest things and the most little things are the things that are the biggest. So, I love that. I think we have a podcast episode titled something like that already, that the little things are the biggest. I'm pretty sure. Something I talked about all the time because it's true. It's just how it is. So, within clothing, you know, I don't wear logos if I can help it. In fact, I remove them. Not only do I just not buy things that have logos, but I'll buy things with logos and remove the logos. Occasionally, some of the things that I have will have logos on them, but I like to be very, very minimal and intentional about that, so that I'm not getting seen as a certain thing on somebody else's end for the sake of me. I don't want to be portraying as though I'm trying to represent somebody else, but then also it just takes up less space in your mind. It really does. And you don't feel like you're something that you're not, and you don't feel like you are multiple things when you're just, or in my case, I'm just Evan Strong. I'm just a kid, and I'm just who I am regardless of what I have. And there's been times in my life where I've had a lot of things and like fancy things, and then there's been times in my life where I've pretty much had nothing. And on either end of the extreme, you're still just who you are. And it's easier to see that the less that you do have. So, you know, when we have our clothing available, I've talked about since the very launch of In The Image Clothing Company that it will not have any branding or logoing on the exterior at all. In The Image Clothing Company clothing, it's not going to say that outside of it. We'll have stuff on the inside, and we're going to do some things with that. But, like, for example, on the inside of a button-up shirt, it's going to only be the inside of it that can't even be seen when you're wearing, that has any kind of branding to it at all. So being minimal is something that's so huge. I mean, I got raised with a lot of beliefs pushed into me and pushed onto me about holding on to things and having so much and making sure that you and your own fleshly, weak human being nature can make sure that you have all that you need, and we can't. We are not in charge. We are not in control. We do not get to decide if we're safe or not, or what things will cause us to feel that way. That is not up to us, no matter how much we wanted it to be. We're called to rely on our God. We're called to go out 2 by 2 with nothing but a staff and just rely, knowing that it's not the human beings that we're going to interact with that are going to provide for us, but it's our God working through them as vessels, as we are commanded to be, to the best of what we can, just a vessel to be used by our God, who knows perfectly what needs to happen, and he will do that through us. So being minimal is not just some fad or phase or some modern thing. It's not a new age thing by any means. It's actually biblical more than anything else, doctrinal. That's where it comes from. It's actually more worldly, which is what new age stuff is, to acquire more things. But we're centered around the truth of all things, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And really, when you read and you look at it through the eye of what minimalism actually means and is, undisputed, without like having some way you're seeing it, the gospel of Jesus Christ is a minimalist lifestyle. And our God himself on this earth, in the form of Jesus Christ, lived a minimalist lifestyle. That's how it is, without me trying to like put a term on it or trying to make it something. That's really the truth. Because we don't take anything with us when we die besides us. And we aren't even this physical body. This is our vessel for us to go through this world in. So even when it comes to our bodies staying minimal, not adding, I know there's cultural reasons for things like tattoos and piercings in certain ways, but not adding excessive tattoos and piercings and things to our bodies, implants and artificial things in ways that are not having a real meaning. Because our bodies just do what they do, and we need to keep them the way that they were designed without altering their workings. And we don't need to put importance on them. We just need to understand them and let them do what they do to get us being spirit children of our God through this earth, within this world, just being our vessels. So in everything we do, less is more. And you will feel as though you have become more the less that you get, when really it's just now you've shed all the things that aren't actually you and allowed you to shine through. So, yeah, the gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. I have so much repentance that I've been doing for just the importance I've placed on physical things, materialistic things, and worldly success and worldly things that I've acquired in my past that I put so much importance on. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I was doing a pretty good job at seeing things for what they were, but in a lot of ways, I was very caught up in trying to just get more. And the more that we get, the less of us is actually there. We lose ourselves in things, and every one of us has an equal potential to do that. It's not like somebody can talk as if they're above somebody else. We can be at places in our lives where we're doing a better job at being intentionally minimal about what we have and use. But it's not about a comparison. It's just about spreading the gospel as it is. And that's really what the gospel is come as you are. Don't worry about what you have, because the status isn't what makes you you. Being minimal in every sense and every aspect of it, even minimal in the amount of things that we label ourselves as, the titles that we have for ourselves or that we add to who we are, because really the only title that is truly us is a son or a daughter of our living God, Jesus Christ. And we have the potential to label ourselves as things that we see around us or that we want to be that are just worldly. And those things just come and go, as everything within the world does. But our God does not leave. So, putting everything away and doing all that we can to center our whole being around the one who created us is really what it means to live a minimalist lifestyle. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap this up with that. We will talk about minimalism as we go, just because I live it. And as a disciple of Jesus Christ, that's kind of just how it goes. And I will continue to understand it deeper, what it means to really not put importance on worldly, materialistic things and put value in the things that we do have for the sake of what they can do for us, and realizing that the less of those things we have, the more they can actually do for us. So, yeah, more to come, deepening in knowledge and understanding and behavior as we go, as we learn, as we grow as a company that is In The Image Clothing Company. We are so much here. We are big and broad in our approach to the human body, but focused within the breadth of that approach. So thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just going to wrap it up. Like I said, today's the 30th of December, 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the founder and the leader of what this is and is becoming more of In The Image Clothing Company.